Welcome back to my channel, Math Vibes Tutoring, and today we're going to continue a geometry lesson using angle relationships to solve problems. By now you've already learned some different definitions about angles and those properties, but you may not know how to use them to actually solve problems, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay? So let's talk about those angles that you have talked about so far. Vertical angles, supplementary angles, complementary angles, and adjacent angles. Okay? Vertical angles. Let's talk about what vertical angles actually are and what they look like. Okay? Most vertical angles, or not most, all vertical angles are formed by intersecting lines. Okay? And those intersecting lines are going to form opposite congruent angles. They're opposite congruent angles. So like these red angles that I've just drawn here, those would be vertical angles and they are congruent. Okay? Maybe I draw some angles here on this side, the blue angles. And the same as well with them. They're formed by opposite congruent, they're formed by intersecting lines and they're opposite congruent angles. So they are the same as well. Okay? Remember, supplementary angles are angles that are going to add up to be 180 degrees. Okay, so these two angles right here are on a straight line, so they must be supplementary angles. They form a linear pair. So supplementary angles, again, have to add up to be 180. Okay, so we're going to say add to 180 degrees. Okay, complementary angles, there are some other angles here, but those two angles are going to add to be 90 degrees. Okay. And then adjacent angles are angles that just form and they share the same vertex. They're right next to each other and they share the same vertex. Okay, they share the same vertex. I'm going to say right here, share same vertex. And they are right next to each other. That's what adjacent means. Right there next to each other. Okay? So you've already had a lesson about those particular angles. Let's talk about how to solve problems using them. So here, first example. So we're going to find the value of this variable x. Now, what do you see? What do you notice for this particular problem? We do have lines, of course, but what's happening to the lines? They are intersecting. So if we're talking about intersecting lines and I'm looking at these opposite angles here, I know that these are vertical angles because they are opposite congruent. Okay? So these are vertical angles. So how do you think we're going to find out what x is going to be if these vertical angles are opposite congruent? Hopefully you thought of setting them equal. So 2x minus 10 degrees is equal to 120 degrees. Okay? So since they're congruent, we set them equal, and then we solve this two-step equation. So we're going to add 10 to both sides. Okay? And so we add 10 to both sides, so we have 2x is equal to 130 divided by 2. So x is going to be equal to 65. Okay? So we figured out what x was, based on the angle pair, which was vertical angles. I'll go back to that last one. They are formed by intersecting lines, but they are opposite. You see, they're opposite congruent. Okay, let's check out this next example. Now, you have intersecting lines. Intersecting lines, what does that tell us? Okay, yes, we have vertical angles if we have intersecting lines, but not for this one. Okay, because what we're actually looking for, we're not looking at these two opposite angles right here, and we're not looking at these two opposite angles right here. We do have intersecting lines, but these two angles right here are adjacent. Okay, you see they share the same vertex and the same ray, and they form a linear pair, which means they're supplementary. These are supplementary angles, okay, because they're right here on a straight line. You see right here on a straight line. So these are supplementary angles. Okay? So, since they're supplementary angles, then I know that 2x plus 4x plus 108, when I add those two angles up together, they must be equal to 180. So, let's go ahead and combine like terms. 2x and 4x, that's going to give us 6x, plus 108 is equal to 180. We're ready to just solve this problem like a regular equation. So now we have 6x is equal to 72. Okay? We're dividing by 6. So that x is equal to 12. So find the value of the variable here. X is equal to 12 because those are supplementary angles. All right, last problem. We are trying to find the value of the variables. Now look at this one. This one has two variables. So we got to find x and let's find y. Okay, let's start with x. Where do we see the variable x? We see it in this expression right here, 2x plus 25. And then we also see it in this expression right here, 3x minus 10. What do you know about these two angles right here? They're formed by intersecting lines and they are opposite. So you know that those two angles are vertical angles. Okay, those are vertical angles. And if they're vertical angles, we know that they're going to be congruent. So 2x plus 25 is equal to 3x minus 10. Let's go ahead and figure out what x is. All right, so I'm going to add 10 to both sides. And I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. Just doing the basic equations that you all learned in pre-algebra. Okay, so 25 and 10 gives us 35. And then 3x minus 2x gives us x. So x is going to be equal to 35. All right. All right, if that is the case, let's figure out what y is. How do I do that? Well, let's see. Let's see something. If x is 35, let's just choose either one of these because they're both the same equivalence right here. So let's just choose this one right here. So if x is 35, then that means that 3 times 35 minus 10 would actually give me the value of this particular angle. Okay? So let's see. 3 times 35 is 105. And then we're going to subtract 10 from that. And that's going to give us 95. Okay? So this angle right here is 95 degrees. I'm going to put it over here so you can see. This is 95 degrees. Okay? Now, what do you know about these two angles together? They're on that straight line, so that they're supplementary angles. So if I want to find out what y is, I can do that pretty simple. Because this y, along with that 95, has to add up to be 180. So to figure out what y is, I'm just going to subtract 95 from 180, and that's going to give me specifically what y is. Okay? And that's going to be 85 degrees. Okay? So x was 35 and y was 85. All right? Any questions? If you have any questions, feel free to put them in my comments. Feel free to email me at mathvibestutoring@gmail.com. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm here to help you in any way that I can. You all have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.